Welcome back to the Now Morning Show. Of course, it's our Tobago Thursday edition. And joining us in studio is Mr. Peter Granville, who's discussing football in Tobago and a little bit more, given, of course, his extensive experience, former under-17, under-20 football coach, retired director of sports at the THA, and a lot more. Good morning, Peter, and welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for inviting me here.
It's a pleasure to have you with us on the show this morning. Of course, there are many things to cover. We've seen a lot of things happening, specifically in football in Trinidad and Tobago. But before we get into that, we'd love to hear from you. You, of course, have been in the business for the industry for years. And how do you feel about the transition of football over the years? What have you witnessed that has stood out to you? And where do you see us going?
Well, let me say good morning to the viewing and listening public. And to answer your question, I've seen in my time here on earth the heights and the lows, the happiness and the sadness of football in this country. Where we are now is not where I believe we needed to be. However, I believe sometime, and this is just my opinion,
Right.
for some things to be fixed,
Okay.
it has to go rock bottom. And that's where we probably have been for the last couple of years. The normalization committee coming in, and we could debate when they came in and for what reason. The bottom line is they could have and they did. And that in itself would probably have caused us now to reconfigure how we've done things in the past and the way forward.
Okay, so those are some strong sentiments, for sure. What would you say particularly would lead you to have those feelings, saying that we are pretty much at a, for want of a better expression, a low point?
Well, when we go back to where we were as a nation, the belief of making it to the World Cup.
Right.
When 5 goals scored by Trinidad and Tobago and 5 goals were disallowed, the referee was banned for life.
Right.
But that didn't help us. We
No.
did not go. So we had people like Steve David, DeLeon, Carpet, and I could go on and on. And I'm calling names, but if you recognize, I'm calling names from the South region. But we also had Ron Laffery. We also had Gally Cummins. That's when football was at its pinnacle, when it was at its best. And I would have seen games like that. And I would have seen some 1 or 2 games in the Oval. They talk about Colts and the Malverns. I saw Malvern, I saw Tesca, I never saw Colts.
Okay.
They played in front of the grandstand of the Queen's Park Savannah. I never saw those games. However, I had the opportunity to sit on the technical advisory committee with people like Sedley Joseph and Alan Henderson, Alvin Henderson, Dr. Alvin Henderson, people like Edgar Vidal, Jimmy Blah, you know, those, and I learned a lot from listening to them, because where I came from and where I'm from is really a home and not a house.
Right.
And it was always thought, and we always thought, to look, listen, and learn. And I've learned a lot here in Trinidad. I've learned a lot in Tobago.
Of course.
But Tobago is not the Mecca.
Right.
Tobago is not the world. Trinidad and Tobago is a twin island nation, of which Trinidad is the capital, and we must understand that.
Okay, well, definitely something to be understood, and I guess for some to be understood and accepted, maybe, for those who follow that train of thought. Now, I just need to go back to what you were mentioning about where things are now. What do you think were the contributing factors, particularly that led us to where we are today?
We seem not to have a philosophy.
Okay.
And I say we, well, then I include myself. Coaches in this country, from what I have experienced, what I've learned, what I've seen over the past number of years and the past few years and past few months, we don't like each other.
Okay.
There are too many backbiting, too many of a head coach looking over his or her shoulder because they're not sure if they're getting the support from other members of staff. And the way it was set up is one will be given an appointment to a particular national team, and will be also given the assistant coaches. And while with the goodness of their hearts back in the day, we are at a point now that does not work. A coach will live and die by the decision he or she makes. So he or she should, and as with the Dwight Yorke situation, is given the opportunity to bring his staff.
Yeah.
And he would live be successful or not successful by the decision he has made, and not that Granville is there and trying to get my job, so he's undermining me.
Okay,
I want to say this. At one point, I had an assistant coach that never showed up. No name to be called. And then I went to Mr. Warner and I said, listen, I would like to have Leroy Spand, who was my mentor as a player. I was nothing close to him. He was phenomenal. And I thought that he would have been a Philip assisting me in the under-20 team when I was there. And that's what you want. You don't want to be given people and you're kind of wandering and learning them. You want people who share the philosophy and can give you what you want without having questions about their commitment.
Very similar to what you would have just said, the house versus the home mentality, which we can see translated onto the field or into the office, as it may be. Now, I'm glad you mentioned Dwight Yorke because, of course, his appointment is quite recent. What are your thoughts on that, and what would you say is necessary for his success?
First of all, let me say I am so elated that Dwight is sitting now in that chair of management. And I can recall when I was doing my first course in 1993, I went to his home. He was playing for Astonville at the time, and he came from training and he was kind of nodding off, and he said, "Well, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm doing coursework." And he said, "But those two big books is all them things you have to do." I'm going to Tobago language now. Is all them things you have to do, boy? I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, boy, me neighbor with that, I will never become a coach." And here we are. Dwight Yorke is now the manager, coach of the national senior team. It had to happen that way.
I was going to ask.
Dwight was born for something.
So you saw this coming, yeah?
I'm not God, but nothing happens before its time.
Right.
And if you understand who Dwight Yorke is and where he came from, it had to happen this way. For those who don't know, Dwight Yorke got in an accident when he was 2+. And he was pulled or dragged below a vehicle. He was bounced down. On his back, there's a scar. And I would go there no more. They say it's of Tobago. But Dwight had to live for something bigger.
Right.
And let me just say this. In our lifetime, I don't think we will ever see a player from Trinidad and Tobago, or even probably the Western Hemisphere, that have won the league, the FA Cup, which I had an opportunity to see. Thank you, Dwight, for organizing tickets. And I ran away from the course. Jim Kelman, if you're watching, yes, I did run away. That day from the course, I was doing the UEFA course. And I ran away. I pretended to be ill, and I went to the FA Cup final to watch Manchester United versus Newcastle.
And it was with
and then, and of course.
Okay.
And then, of course, they won the Champions League in a phenomenal way that maybe we will never see ever. Scoring 3 goals within 4 or 5 minutes. But this young man was an intricate part of that team that he scored 29 goals, 19 with his head. The most goals in the Champions League that year. And people don't know. And Rivaldo became the player of the year, and Dwight Yorke was nowhere there. But that's okay, and that doesn't differ. Like, what it does for us is that we have to be better and better.
Right. 3
and 4 times better to be recognized. And that's the reality.
It is the reality. Now, of course, you would have mentioned when it comes to electing those who are working with you on the team. But what other things would you say, or what other components are necessary to ensure Dwight's success with this recent appointment?
Support from the coaches in the Pro League. Support from the coaches who are playing, they say minor league. I don't like to say that. I like to say community leagues. Support for those members in the communities that are of a particular ilk, that people gravitate towards them and they have a say, and they may not hold an office. Support from the players. Rest, I know about that. Rest. Work away from the training sessions. And I dare say support from you, the public, not just when the team is doing well, but when the team needs your support. Be a fan. And I would like to say the word fan has come from, or the slogan fan, has come from the word fanatics. So be a fanatic. Support, don't coach. Come out and rave and grind and grit and wear your red, white, and black. Find a Trinidad and Tobago jersey somewhere. But support the team. Because Dwight has a short window, you know. Because people are they're talking about, well, he's got to set up this and so. Dwight's got to set up nothing. Dwight's got to put a team in place to win. That's the bottom line. There's a technical director here, Anton Cornell, my friend Tanner. Good morning if you're listening. That's the job for Anton Cornell and other office bearers. Dwight's job is to have the best players available to give this country the best possible chance to qualify. But he can't do it on his own. Yeah, we'll see him in the front, but it's people in the background are releasing them players to training. And players must take some responsibility themselves to work hard because they're diamonds in the rough. Dwight can't see everyone. But have I spoken to Dwight? No, I haven't spoken to Dwight. He's been here. But I've not spoken to him because everybody wants a piece of Dwight. And it's to allow him to do his job. He wanted to see what he has. He has not been here. He doesn't know some of the players. I've been here and I don't know some of the players. And I have my opinion on some of the players, but that's just my opinion. Dwight has to make his decisions the way he sees it and the way he has been taught to coach.
No, the way he's been taught to coach. Quite interesting. Now, as you would have mentioned, players in Trinidad and Tobago, you referenced, of course, previously the state of football in our Twin Island Republic. But what about where we stand right now when it comes to the quality of players, players being actually molded and trained? Would you say that we are at that level where it's going to be, I wouldn't say easy pickings, but more manageable for Dwight, as you mentioned, to go out and be able to scout and bring people onto the team and mold them into the player that we need?
Right. So you're asking about two things here.
Right.
Scouting is something totally different.
Okay.
Scouting has to do with looking at a player with or without him having the ball. To scout is not easy. And I dare say, coaches in the past and coaches presently over the last maybe year or so continue, and I'm dealing with Tobago and I want to be Tobago-centric. I'm fighting for my people here. They didn't ask, but that's me. Coming to Tobago and spending 3 or 4 hours and looking at players over a 2-hour period, it's unacceptable. But it was what it has been before us.
Right.
Unfortunately for me, I was born and bred there. I spent time in England, I spent time in the States, I worked there for a while, and I work in camps, so I have a fair idea of how to make your job easier. And for me, a national team is not a national team until Tobago has a squad, Trinidad has a squad. They train doing the same kind of program, having the same philosophy as the head coach so desires. And until they play and until he comes and work and he doesn't have that time though, this time, and play against each other, then it becomes for me a national team. I did it, but it was easy for me because I lived there. So I asked the Tobago FA, I would love to put a team in place. I spoke to Mr. Warner. I would love to put a team in place in Tobago, and And I did that. I scouted. I didn't scout alone. Anthony Keith, Jordan, deceased, Flabbert, Bertil Sinclair. I asked all of them, come and help me select players. And we went all throughout Tobago. And after doing that, I came down to 40 players, from 40 to 30, from 30 to 25, from 25 to 21. And the team in Trinidad came to Tobago and trained, and the boys Tobago trained, and they played games and played games. And it is then and only then I decided who my 25 would have been. Dwight does not have that time, and that's what I'm appealing to coaches. We don't know exactly what he wants, but one of the things that I know is that all coaches want to win. So let's not keep players away from Dwight. Let's not push players who are not of the ilk to be in the squad because it's good for your team. We've got to get rid of that. That has its level. This is national. This is where the big Tantos and the Zagaloos comes in. And Dwight has a job to do. Let us allow him to do his job the way he wants to. But let us support him. And I want to say again, the public needs to come out. That is the third man. Or No, that's the 12th man. Yeah. Well, Tobago, Trinidad. Yeah, on the and. That's the third man. Because I know Andre Baptiste might suit me for saying the 12th man. But Andre, 12th man.
Okay.
Kudos to you.
So let's speak about that, because you did mention the fans. And of course, again, you have been in the arena for quite some time. Mm-hmm. Have you seen that decrease in fandom in Trinidad and Tobago?
Yes. And no, so we right back where we started.
Right.
Yes, because they only come on board when things are going well. Mm-hmm. And that's not the way fans operate.
Okay.
Fans operate on a system where, let me give you, for example, Manchester United and Manchester City are two of the biggest clubs.
Okay.
Manchester United players will never go to a Manchester City game except they're playing Manchester United.
Correct.
It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. I go to England almost every year, and I go all over the place. I'm an Arsenal fan, but I go to see games, and fans of a club goes not anywhere else than when their clubs are playing. And we're not there yet.
Right.
But how do we get that following? It's not just about winning, because winning comes based on sometimes you're pushing from the back. And that crowd and that atmosphere. We didn't qualify for the World Cup because some of the national players said at the time when we were going to Italy, when they walked in to check the ground, they were in awe because they never saw people. I got pushed in and I had the ticket. And all I'm saying to all of us, it is going to take the entire nation behind Dwight and his office bearers to do what they need to do. But we have our role to play.
We do.
By supporting him and giving what he says he wants.
Definitely. Well, look, Peter, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We have run out of time, but I'm sure at some point in time you'll be back to continue this discussion, yes?
I'm always available.
Always available.
Yeah,
great.
I am employed at the division of Idle Hall right now.
All right. Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining us. Peter Granville here with us this morning, speaking about football in Trinidad and in Tobago and how we can also do our part. Stay tuned. The Tobago Thursdays is continuing after this break.